Hi friends, I'm Ulysses and this is Comics Odyssey Viewer Questions. You see a email displayed on the screen there. It's also below in the description box. I'm gonna start doing this, gathering people's questions and doing my best to answer them from my own font of opinion. And so feel free to dismiss at your as you deem fit, or engage as you deem fit. I just want to. So this is a question from Mary Angela, who is a Canadian, and she's asking, since Trump has imposed tariffs on Canada, should she consider boycotting American comic book products? So there's a lot in that question. It's a bit of a hot wire topic, so I'll do my best to be careful when I answer. First, you have to consider that Donald Trump isn't America. He's making decisions that he was elected. He was elected by Americans, and he's making decisions that he promised to make. However, he is not all the Americans, and some Americans, I'm sure, disagree. And you have to separate, the political level relationship between nations and the citizens within those nations and their relationships. And you got to consider that a lot of people that made the comics that you love to read don't have anything to do with this, and they have no control over this. So that's the first thing. Just separate these things out. Don't bundle them all together. That is going to drive you crazy. Number two, you got to be careful chasing that kind of pure consumer decision. Put some effort into looking at the background of things you buy, and do some real pick, like say 3 products, some coffee, some shoes, and some food, and do a thorough research on where this comes from. It won't take that long for you to come across somewhere where it's come in touch with something that makes you uncomfortable, whether that's corruption or a political thing or an ethical thing or something like that. What can happen is you can get stuck in what's called a purity spiral, where you're constantly trying to outdo yourself into being more pure. That's where you get coffee fanatics that are importing their water from such and such a place because it's got melted from a glacier, and most of us aren't that level of coffee connoisseur, and we're just happy with just coffee, right? Whereas you can kind of, when it comes to activist-y political things, you can kind of get caught in that spiral of trying to be perfectly pure, which is an unattainable goal. You have to kind of know where your line is. And another thing to consider is how much of an impact you boycotting, let's say you're buying 10 comics a month, which is going to be about $50 a month. That's not going to affect Donald Trump. It's not even going to affect your comic book store, let alone the publisher and that would only affect the comics industry if literally everybody did it. It would have to be a lot of people for that to move the needle, right? So that's not a very effective form of protest if protest is your thing. Finally, you have to consider the cost of how much joy you're losing by doing a decision like that, and how much you not having that joy is going to affect the people around you and your community and yourself, right? So you can get stuck in a cycle of finding problems in the world and making consumer decisions as a kind of a stand against those problems. And if you can do that and be an enjoyable person to be around and still be productive within your family and your work environment and all that, and not create a problem for people, well, then maybe that's okay. But if this turns you into a neurotic curmudgeon, then maybe that's not the best path for life, So weigh all those pros and cons, how effective of a protest is it going to be? Not effective at all in this case. And then, is this going to turn you into an annoying person to be around? And so those are all my thoughts on that. I think, the creators who made those comics, the publishers. Oh, and I wanted to mention, all those comic books you buy in Canada, almost all of them are printed in Canada. So you might be taking a stand that is actually hurting a Canadian company in this attempt to protest Donald Trump, so that you'd be kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So I don't know. Weigh those pros and cons. Hope that helped, and see you in the next one. God bless.